Have you ever entered a conversation involving what do you think about the price going up on your house or the new shop that opened close by? Then you have entered a conversation involving gentrification. But what is it? This is what I'm going to answer in this speech and the problem they cause is some examples of gentrification and a solution known as rent control. But what is gentrification? You've probably heard of gentrification on the news recently. It is the process of wealthy people moving into urban neighborhoods and displacing the original residents. Gentrification was first coined around by Ruth Glass in 1960s. It is to describe the phenomenon of wealthy, upper middle class British families buying properties in the east end of London. The word is based off of gentry, which means people in good social position. The class of people next below to noble position and birth. Um, mm, the the original residents rent gets too expensive. Rent gets too expensive and can cause financial burden to the original residents. Gentrification can also cause racial and class tension between the residents and the new neighbors. The arrival of buyers and building new houses and new fancy houses inclines the neighborhood for building coffee shops, bosquets, and clubs. The whole neighborhood's culture shifts to a car for the wealthy residents. Um, Rent can cause the low income residents risk of losing their house because of gentrification. Rent gets too they feel financially pressured to leave the area because they cannot compete with the residential market. Low income women, mothers in particular, are evicted and can fall into the depression within a year. Some examples of gentrification negative impact are New York. New York City strives to maintain its prominent reputation, and in order to maintain it, gentrification is needed. In 2003 alone, 225,000 renters had to move out because of financial reasons. Out of those 225,000 renters, 96,000 of them were displaced by the landlord or government officer. New York City is an interesting example because they have been doing this for over 30 years. Now the city's neighborhood has some of the nicest places, but nobody talks about the people that have been displaced decades ago. Another example is Philadelphia. Northern Philadelphia has recently undergone in recent years have undergone gentrification. Blighted blocks, one after another that stand out and look out of place. Local people call this fake nice. It's called fake nice because in appearance it looks nice, but the people in it are suffering economically. Families fixed up in these houses are having trouble making money and keeping their kids in school. The residents near Temple University, for instance, have created a community development resistance because they want to avoid the university from buying their land and create more housing for the students. The neighborhood doesn't get along with the students, and gentrification is met with resistance. My final example is San Francisco. This American city makes headlines for gentrified culture and changes. The growth of IT, informative technology, in the IT city of the world, as Google, the largest head office is increasingly becoming a place for engineers and IT professionals. Um, People in other sectors are undervalued with concepts such as Google buses, which are only offered to Google employees. Mm, because of this professional and growth in technology, it can cause displacement and suffering for poor people. The government took notice of this and is creating of this problem and is creating employment outside of the IT industry. Um, my solution to this is rent control, but what is it? Rent control is a government project in order to limit the amount the landlord can demand and for licensing a house or renewing a licensing. Rent control is usually enacted by manipulation and details can vary widely. All of this is to keep living costs affordable for low-income residents. Rent control isn't widely spread around the U.S. And according to an article in 2019, the Urban Institution, 182 manipulants for rent control regulations are in the U.S. and all of them are in New York, New Jersey, California, Maryland, or Washington D.C. or Washington D.C. The, thankfully, however, rent control regulations have been revived in recent years. With this, we come to the conclusion. I talked about what is gentrification and the problems it causes, some real-life examples, and a solution known as rent control. Gentrification can not only affect other people's lives, but yours as well. And I want more people talking about it. Thank you for listening to my speech.